just wanted to share with you a few of my feelings on the election yesterday in Rome of the new Pope. I was very surprised that they chose Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger. My thoughts all along, and indeed I had written that it would be in Italian. Well, not this time, maybe next time. I think the interesting thing about Joseph Ratzinger is that he is following on the tradition of the previous Pope. I think the other interesting thing is that he's chosen a name which had nothing to do with the previous Pope. We've been told all along that Joseph Ratzinger was a very close ally of the late John Paul II. So interestingly, you'd have thought he would have chosen the name John Paul III. I'd like to talk about that later. I think the selection of Joseph Ratzinger is going to be, for those who have been Vatican watchers as I have for many years, an interesting reign. Joseph Ratzinger, as many as you know, was born in Germany in 1927. Him and his brother were co-opted into the Hitler Youth. I'm afraid in those days everybody had to join. And during the war he was acted as an auxiliary in the anti-aircraft movement to defend his country. 1951 he was ordained, but not for him the everyday stress of being a parish priest. Instead, the young Joseph had a natural dispensation for theology and philosophy, and he was to grace the chairs of many distinguished universities in theology. I first heard of him during Vatican II from 1961 to 1963. In those days he was a very young theologian who was very much instrumental with senior leading liberal left-wing cardinals in moving the church in the direction that they thought would be beneficial, i.e. the ecumenical movement, the interfaith movement, and so forth. It seems to have been very, very successful, because after that his star in the church rose very, very quickly, and in 1977 he became the Archbishop of Munich. But it wasn't until the election in 1978, the year of three popes as we call it, that the young Joseph Ratzinger was involved in the election of the Pope from Poland, Karol Wojtyla. And I think it was because of this loyalty that the Pope felt that he appointed him in later years as head of the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith, one of those big words that they use in Rome. You may remember it as the holy office of the terrible Inquisition, which slaughtered some 20 million people only 200 or 300 years ago. And it was there that he was to cast an iron hand on any indiscretion that he felt might attempt to undermine the role of the Catholic Church through the Pope and through the conclave and through the Curia. Joseph Ratzinger, in years after that, was to be called God's Rottweiler. He was also to be called, one I liked was Le Panzer Cardinal, or the old stormtrooper himself. I think it's a shame really, because everybody who seems to meet him finds him very charming. His smile is almost contagious, and he's a very talented pianist. But on a serious level, what I will be looking for on Sunday, and I hope Christians around the world will be looking for this, is whether he will still be using that grotesque, blasphemous cross at the papal Mass. I know this morning he was using it at his first Mass, but maybe by then someone will have talked him out of it. I would certainly like to see this cross destroyed, snapped into and confined to the furnaces in the Vatican. I'm also looking to see whether the papal tiara will be used this time. It wasn't used in the last two popes. And interesting enough to our American friends, it's housed in Washington. What is doing there? I don't know. But it may even be FedExed this very time, this very day, to be used. So, finally I'd like to say that as I watched that little chimney on the news, especially on CNN, that little Vatican as they called it, we watched this chimney to see what the smoke was going to say. I'd like to say, black smoke, white smoke, holy smoke, to me it's all a smoke screen. We here at End Times Coming, my son James and myself, will be watching and monitoring the reign of this future Pope and the direction the Vatican's taken it in. We will be watching every move to see how it affects Christians throughout the world. We hope you'll be watching with us. Until then, Maranatha and goodbye.